One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. Today, very grateful, very humble, be joined by the great man, Matt Castle, again for part two. If anyone wants to listen to mine and Matt's conversation we actually record that Christmas Eve, Matt. Can you believe that of last
Uh,
year?
yeah,
The links to those
wasn't.
conversations will be in the show notes. Matt's a men's coach, breathwork facilitator, also a freedom self sabotage coach. Does a lot of cool stuff and has a very interesting story. So if you do want to listen to that story, it is in the show notes. Matt, welcome back. Been looking forward to getting you back on for a couple of weeks. How you doing? And what's been going on since our last conversation? Bloody 6, 7 months ago.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't feel like that long ago, mate.
No.
No, I mean, lots has happened, eh? Lots have happened. Lots of things have happened. It's been a busy 6 months for you and I guess. But mate, we did talk about getting back on together and having a chat and kind of just going a bit deeper than we did last time. And yeah, just really looking forward to yeah, just digging a little bit deeper and expanding out some of these topics that we've sort of got a scent for now, and we're digging for answers.
Absolutely. And your content in the last probably 3 months, I reckon, has been really, really awesome. That short, sweet, straight to the point sort of relationship stuff. And it's really brought up some interesting conversations you've had in your comments too. And it's around all the things that we're going to talk about today. And there's a reason why I'm saying it. You're talking a lot about the female male polarity, talking a lot about the subconscious mind. And it's very interesting seeing, well, look, some people are getting triggered by what you're saying, which means you are hitting a pain point. So with that polarity, for anyone out there, what even is polarity? What's polarity? And what's your take on the male female polarity?
Yeah, well, what a great topic to kick off with, mate. Obvious. It's the obvious has become very hard to see in this modern day, and I've just done another podcast with Curious Bee about a very similar topic. And we're these antennas, these walking, talking antennas, and we have a very sensitive nervous system to what is going on in our environment, and it's being scrambled. And so the polarity is being lost around male and female. I mean, what how did this happen? How did we actually kind of lose the context of what a man and a woman actually is and what a man and a woman actually needs in their
Mm.
lives? And it really has been so scrambled that people are just completely baffled as to what a man or a woman actually needs in order to create, this beautiful union that we once knew of marriage. Um, and then, of course, the family environment is being affected because of the scrambling of our innate design. And I call it the innate design because, as you know, a man and a woman has this innate um, sense of purpose, or this innate purpose in this physical realm, which is to procreate, basically, to procreate, I guess, to make sure the species survive, but also uh, to actually create in this reality that we're decoding on a daily basis, and we've been completely oblivious to the magic that actually surrounds us every day. So the polarity has been lost. And I talk about the business model that's going on around us, and it's this great big business model that the Western world, particularly, but the entire planet has been swallowed up in, where there's actually business going on within our daily life. It's become very normal. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Truman Show.
I have seen the movie The Truman Show. I watched it in year 10
Yeah.
like 50 times. We did it as like a film study.
Yeah, so I
Mm.
actually just watched this recently too, so I thought I'd bring that up.
Mm.
For Truman, it was just normal everyday stuff until he started to realize there was something not quite adding up.
Mm.
The repetitive content was starting to glitch, and he was seeing the same people come past and the vehicles come past, and things were starting to, not add up in his world. But for the many years that show was screening, he believed that all of his behavior was organic. and
Mm.
everybody else's behavior was organic. And this is what's happening on a large scale, where the basically the reality is being created to do business, and the polarity between a man and a woman has actually been distorted to bust them up, to separate them, so that the I guess the business model can then do business with the next generation. As it is, like, how did we end up in a point where um, we might be going a little bit too deep for now, but how do we get to the point where the state can have more say about our children than mum or dad? And we're at that point, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
just snuck up on us. And until you actually go through what I went through with my children, you don't actually realize how bad it is and how far we've gone. Where these people doing business for a job actually have more say about our child than we do, and the safety and the benefits of that child. So this global business model has purposely distorted men and women so that we don't work well together. And this frequency of the masculine and feminine requires the polarity, just like a negative and a positive battery requires those two terminals. We actually need the negative and the positive, the yin and the yang, in order to have that balance, that harmonic resonance of that polarity. So, but we've got to the point, Nathan, where we don't understand each other. How have we gone? For myself, I've only just learned this since my separation, because I went deep trying to find out what it was in my behavior and her behavior that caused us to kind of, you know, basically pop apart. It just happened very quickly. All of a sudden, it was like, bang, this is not working. And it happened very quickly. And I think for a lot of couples, it does happen very quickly. So, how did we get, you know, 10, 20 years into a relationship without actually understanding what a man and a woman actually need in the relationship? So now we're trying to get to the bottom of it really quickly so that we can save our marriages and protect the children.
That's exactly why we're here too. Just on what you said there, I've got a few things I've written down here. What does a man and a woman need?
Yeah, well, there's obviously a pretty a large list.
Yeah, yeah, I
As
bet.
we
I
know,
know.
I've been married before, so we
Yeah,
know the list can be pretty long. But
yeah,
when we break it down to a primal level,
yeah.
which is what I like to do, a lot of my work, you can see where I live. I grew up very primal, so I have, my mum and dad had a very big polarity. They're still together to this day. Um, so we, so I grew up very primal, and so I think the answer lies in our primal instinctive behavior, because what's happened is the conditioning for women have conditioned women to believe that what they want in a man is kind of a bestie, which loses the polarity, because all they're getting is the feminine side. They're not really getting that masculine balance.
Mm,
So, a woman needs the leadership. They need a man that is emotionally stable, calm, grounded, and able to just allow her to express herself without reacting, so that he can respond, and he can respond in a way that doesn't engage in conflict, and it doesn't match her emotions. And I think I see this too many times when I'm working with men, is that when they're telling me the story about what's going on, they're telling me about how they're reacting. And I'm hearing that they're just reacting to her emotional turmoil. So that's the biggest thing, is that we need, and so men are emotionally reacting for a number of reasons. And we know that there are 5 negative emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And every one of those has been slowly drip fed into us over our lifetime, from this
mm.
global business model, from the TV, from the music. As you know, Nathan, that our environment has just been absolutely flooded with this negative content, um, and which has been creating that trauma response, and that the negative emotions. So what happens is when a woman is going through her cycle. She has a 28-day cycle. She's going through her cycle. She's experiencing a lot of different emotions. And when a man meets her emotions, then she doesn't feel that polarity. She doesn't feel his strength, his power, his masculine. His power is stability, is believing in himself and knowing his purpose and knowing no matter what, he's got this, And I think a lot of people, because of, I know a lot of men, because of the environment, the toxic environment that we have now, a lot of men really don't think that they have it. They'd like to believe so, and they go through their marriage lying to themselves, and lying to their woman, but she can smell it a mile away
Mm.
because they're very, women are very sensitive, and they sense they sense fake leadership. So yeah, I think the emotional side of things, yeah, men need softness from their woman. Um, yeah, they really want nurturing. Like I think most men, we are constantly trying to regulate our emotions and stay strong to provide, I guess, the presentation to the world of power. We're standing in our power. We're constantly trying to do that, and it can actually be draining if you don't know how to drive it properly. So, in order for a woman to feel safe, she needs her man to be in his power, and the modern day society is really depowering the masculine for that reason, and it's actually sending the woman into a frenzy, a fight or flight situation, and then they're running from that situation as well. So not only is the polarity shifted, now we've actually got almost the negative and the negative. Have you ever tried to join two magnets together the wrong way around? You've almost got that happening,
Yeah.
and you see this happening in a lot of the marriages that are failing. The more the man pushes and tries because he's in fear of losing her, he's actually pushing her away. So the opposite needs to occur where he's in his power, that he's leading, he knows where he's going. She will test him, and he will just keep going and saying, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do. Of course, her superpower is her intuition. So, she'll go by the feeling. If she feels that he's not believing in himself, like I said, she'll sense that fake leadership. And then he should pay attention to that too. There was actually, like, a lot of the the ancient scriptures, the pharaohs always were connected with their women physically. And so, there's something energetic around that as well. The pharaohs always knew the power of the feminine in terms of their intuition. So she would be able to guide him more or less in the spiritual realm. And so he could decode that if he was conscious. He could decode that into, the physical realm. And that would be his power of decision making, his power of leading, his leadership, his power of healthy conflict resolution. All of these things that we've kind of lost over the course of, my lifetime anyway, the last 30 years, but the last 100 years plus. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love what you're saying there. It's with the Pharaoh thing too. I think that well, so why has this occurred? Well, actually, here's the better question. Why is there such an assault on the masculine and feminine? There's the question.
Hmm. Well, yeah, look, I mean, it's control, isn't it?
Yeah.
It comes back to control. There's, this ancient ruling group that we're learning a little more and more about all the time, that has kind of withheld the information from the public. We've learnt everything that we need to do well in commerce in the commercial realm, but spiritually we're bankrupt. And so this is why there's this huge move now where people are completely void. They're just absolutely exhausted. A lot of the men that I talk to are absolutely exhausted from not actually being able to connect with themselves because this knowledge has been kept from us.
Mm.
So as soon as we learn how we work and we learn what it is that we need ourselves to be healthy, then we can start learning what our children need and what our woman, or for a woman, what her man needs as well. And now, of course, we're opening the conversation. We can actually see what it is that we need. And there'll be patterns. When I talk to guys on the phone, there's patterns that emerge. And it's like, yeah, okay, he's got a different story, but it's exactly the same pattern that I've heard in the last 100 guys that I've spoken to. So we get these patterns, and it's the same thing. And when you start using more of the conscious mind, you can actually start sort of looking a bit more at these patterns. So why is it happening? It's a global business model.
Mm.
And there's, the change in currency. The currency we're using is exhausted. So there's a change of currency. In order for that currency to work, the family unit needs to break apart, because and connection is being challenged. It's not just the masculine and the feminine, although that is the guiding force of the connection. So with that being kind of attacked from what we don't see, we don't actually see it because it's just the steady flow of information that is contrary to our innate design. We don't actually see it happening, and it's been happening so slowly for such a long time that it's like we've got down the end of the hallway and we're looking back the hallway going, wow, how did we even get here? You know,
Mm.
um, it's a long hallway. So yeah, like why is it happening? It's a global business model, and we are being trade. Our it's like this. When how the like advertising on TV works and things. Once you actually understand how that works, how people are going and buying stuff that they don't need, chopping body parts, filling body parts with resin, or whatever it is that they use, all these chemicals and stuff. What makes somebody actually do that? Well, this is the same force that's causing men and women to actually split apart. Yeah. And so for this artificial entity that I call it, that is sort of governing our thoughts, perceptions, and behaviors, for them to have complete control, you know, they want to have control of the children. And
Yeah.
they have had for a very long time. I touched on this with trauma with regards to children going to school and the trauma, the significant emotional event that they incur, the trauma that they actually take on in those first few days of school, in the first month, even the first year. Sometimes it can go longer for some children when they're getting bullied. So yeah, it's and then once that trauma is engaged, it's just like this steady flow, because when humans are in fear, uh, they are more likely to follow the instructions. And if it means go buy this, then if that's the instruction for the subconscious, the unconscious mind, that's where the behavior comes from. And
Mm.
until we actually start realizing how this works, they say in hypnosis as well that if you genuinely think that you can't be hypnotized, you're actually easier to be hypnotized. That's the
100%.
general rule. Yeah, it's the general rule, because unless you actually know how hypnosis works, then you're never going to know what's the driving force behind your behavior that may be destroying your marriage, maybe hurting or injuring your children, even, or your wife. There is, I definitely uh, accept that there is a lot of, toxic men out there that are full of the substance, and their brain is so full of the violence that they've seen on TV, they've experienced as children,
Yeah.
that they do go and hurt their family. So it's going to take time to kind of get through all of that, and try and I think we'll outgrow it eventually, but slowly we just have to start learning how and where this is coming from.
Yeah, and a lot of it we both talk a lot about the programming stuff too. And I just call it for what it is now. It's basic mind control. You know,
Mm.
as soon as we fly out of the womb, we're getting some men are getting ushered into a room to get parts of themselves cut off, called circumcision, which is a rabbit hole I'm going down another podcast out very soon. But that's also a very deep-seated trauma when you first fly out of the womb, because from what I'm listening and doing my own research here is that mother to child contact at birth is an absolute necessity. But they're taking the baby away to another room and doing that to the young boys. So there's already a deep-seated trauma out there amongst men that have had that circumcision, which is an interesting little rabbit hole there. But you're
Mm.
talking about the school too. So then they get ushered into school or preschool, and then, as you said off air the other day, these boys are crying. Even these girls, they're crying because they don't want to go. It's the anxiety around being left in a place that is very unfamiliar and very unsafe. And then they grow up and get older, and then you look at society now, and you look out the window and go, well, how did we get here? It's like, well, as you're saying, it's that business model, but it's also that system of control that has made it so hard for parents to make ends meet that they have to send these kids to these mind control institutions. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's just happened so slowly that we haven't realized that it's been happening.
Correct.
And it's the same thing with the masculine and the feminine. Like
Yep.
that's basically the root from what I can see is that it's been targeted on an energetic level
Yep.
to split the polarity. And then with the polarity being split now, there's, I guess, women have become more masculine and men have become more feminine, which is really,
Yeah.
it's just killed the polarity and attraction. There's nothing, and so a masculine woman cannot attract a masculine man, which is what she wants innately.
Mm.
Um, Even though many women will say that they want, an emotionally available man,
Yes.
which in a lot of ways is actually a feminine man. An emotionally stable man should be able to be, I guess, emotionally vulnerable, but not too vulnerable that she starts feeling that he's actually not able to hold her. See what I mean? So there's a balance
Mm.
there. But yeah, in terms of the schooling and you know the girls and the boys, because we're quite different in how we learn. Um, Boys are genuinely non-compliant, and this is why we're seeing
Mm.
all of the laws. This is why we're seeing all of the laws favor the woman.
Mm.
So women don't realize that they're actually being, I'll just go ahead and say it,
Yeah.
weaponized. I
Yep.
believe that it is a weaponized feminine.
Yep.
And I think most women that are, you know, aware would agree with me. Some may disagree with me, but in the court system, they're being weaponized, and in legislation, they're being weaponized because men are genuinely non-compliant. Men want to be able to see their children when they want to. They don't want to be held back. That doesn't mean that they're going to be violent towards the mother or the children. It just means that they're not going to want to listen to somebody else telling them that they can't see their children until they've crossed some I's and crossed some T's and dotted some I's.
Yeah.
So in terms of the schooling, where that goes back to is women are, and again, this is so generalizing sometimes, there might be a bit of backlash, but
It's all
women
right.
are genuinely more compliant. And what I mean by that is that men are more logical. The compliant part of the brain is actually the emotional part of the brain. And because women are guided by their emotions, they are more likely to be compliant because the emotional behavior is the leading behavior, right? And that's our unconscious mind. Whereas men are meant to be more logical and rational. And that's why there's that polarity. We've got these I guess these skills, these innate skills that we both have that actually create, you know, wholeness, create balance. So in the school, young girls are actually more compliant. They're happier to go to school usually, and they're happier to do what they're told to do there. Whereas young boys are going, I don't even want to do this. I want to be outside running around. I
Mm-hmm.
want to build a hut with sticks, and I want to do something with my hands. I want to be in the sunshine. I want to be doing all this other stuff. So largely, the boys are at a huge disadvantage anyway, and so the trauma around that it actually creates a more compliant boy. But at the same time, when you're getting a more compliant man or more compliant boy, he's not in alignment with his natural design, which is his purpose. His purpose is to follow, follow his. Well, I guess his purpose is to follow his uh, create leadership, to follow his heart, so that he can build through pushing the limits, pushing. the barriers, pushing the parameters. He needs to lean into danger in order to grow. That's how men grow. Men grow through failure, through rejection. Like, and as a dating coach, um, men are often afraid to walk up and approach a woman.
Mm,
But we encourage you to do that, because the more rejection you get, the more resilience you're actually building,
mm,
and the easier it becomes. And it's the same with bricklaying. It's the same with building a house. It's the same with whatever it is that you do. Um, the more you do it, the more resilience you build around it, and you're gonna make mistakes. And that's why a man can actually increase his value as he gets older. So older men, younger women often want older men. Younger women often are more attracted to older men because they have the value built up. It takes us a whole lifetime to build our value. And I guess I'm sort of straying from that
no, that's
the original
fine.
fact, but it's really, I just wanted to emphasize that what
Mm,
is missing in society is we're cotton wooled, and the boys were surrounded by the safety model, which is just a sales safety model. They're just selling this safety to us, which is, I call, fake safety, because there's
yep.
fake fear in the first place.
Mm,
And so we're wrapped in cotton wool, and therefore we're not growing. And this is what's happening when boys reach puberty. And we've talked about rites of passage too. So rites of
mm,
passage from a young man, an adolescent, becoming a young man, and then a young man becoming a mature man, and then a mature man becoming a senior. You know, um, so there's these rites of passage as well as we go, and we're not going through those processes because we've been sheltered in this safety business model. And the reason why they're doing that, is because it's much easier to control the population with weak men, and weak men cannot attract a good mate, a good partner, which is just like, actually, I was having the conversation the other day that our population is in such decline. Are we actually an endangered species now?
it's a good question to ponder,
One,
isn't it?
yeah,
Especially after the
wonder the
last
future.
5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So really, that's a good ponder that, and that's an interesting side tangent to the. Yeah, wow. Just back onto some of the things you said earlier too. I wanted to circle. I've written some stuff down and circled them. So you look at the women in 2020. More women in 2020 stood up than men. Now that's been spoken
Mm,
about a lot on these platforms, but you could see a lot of the women were in their masculine a fair bit standing up, and you could see
mm,
that. And I was at some of these things, and I'm like every other podcast host. I would ask, I'd be like, oh, where's
mm,
your husband, or oh no, he doesn't want to be here, like he wants to be here, but doesn't want to lose his job, or there was always like an excuse. But then it's
mm.
like, well, the women are risking it all. What are we
Yeah.
doing? It's like. So I think this attack, as you said, has been going on for centuries, but it really heightened in 2020, and you saw a lot of women
Mm,
in that masculine standing up to a system that, to be fair, us as men, it should be incumbent upon us to stand up to that. To be honest with
mm.
you, and that's just something that I noticed, and even now you circle back, or circle forward now, you're like in the modern 5 years on, there's still not many men doing anything at all. It's like keeping on, and the last 5 years is forgotten about. What's your view on what I just said there?
Yeah, look, that's a really good point that you've raised, and I agree. Through
Mm,
that time, the last 5 years, I've been making a lot of noise and just wondering where the men were,
yeah.
especially early on in 2020. It was largely women standing up and saying what's going on. There's a couple of things there. I mean, what we talked about, men being weakened from the
Hmm.
system right through, so they've been purposely hacked to be compliant. Now, there's a few things behind the substance is one. They're all addicted to substance, and they're
Yeah.
all, have peer pressure.
Yep.
Like when you're at school and somebody's having a cigarette when I was like 14 or something, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Do you want one?" Nah. And they were like, "Oh, what a loser.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a
Um,
cigarette." So what happens is we've made it so, well, the media and the state making these substances so normal, that it's abnormal to actually be healthy. And so a lot of these men are so addicted to substance that they've weakened their nervous system and opened up their unconscious mind to the point where their nervous system is completely feeling unsafe to separate from the group.
Yep.
So now they're just drawn. So instead of the cigarette, it's the beers.
Yep.
And so they're just drawn into having beers every night as a connection, as a way of connecting, which destroys the actual connection. Right. So this bonding ritual that they're participating in has actually no physical or spiritual benefit to each man that is engaging in this ritual, and it is a bonding ritual, whether they're conscious of it or not, and it's been hijacked. So
Yes.
what I see happening now, and I don't know about where you are, I'm pretty sure because there is a guy, I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of good work with bringing men together in Aussie and all around the world, I know, but this is what we need to do. We need to connect again. We need to connect like in our community with others, because once you start connecting with men without the alcohol, without the substance, you get real conversation. And when you
Yeah.
get real conversation, you get real feedback. And when you get real feedback, then you get real change, right? We can't keep going on looking for solutions with the same mindset that created the problems. So
Yeah.
the only
100%.
way we can the only way we can change that is by connecting. And I think this is what, because the fear of being alone and the fear of being outcast is the biggest driver behind the compliance of a man. So for men to drive their leadership ability and to stop complying, and this may sound toxic to some people, but complying to their woman, and there is a deeper level to that, which I can expand on. But
Mm.
when we comply to our woman, she senses weakness because now she's leading. Do you know what I mean? It's different to actually listening to her and giving her what she needs, or providing what she needs, but in a way that uh, that submission of men to to authority, to the crowd, to their women, all of this has actually killed that polarity, and it's killed that ability to grow. So we're learning and we're growing, and it's really, I think it's very powerful what's going on now. I've been creating things myself with the breath work, the saunas, having some real conversations about what people are experiencing in their marriages and their relationships, their fitness, their health, their psyche, like where's their mindset at, all of this stuff. It just helps to have real world feedback. So the connection is just so powerful, and I always say, like, to the guys that I work with, I always say, create something. I did
Yeah.
it. I've been doing it for 2 years, and I've had 35 guys. I've had 5 guys, but I've just been consistent. I'll just keep showing up. So, you can't be disheartened especially when you're starting out. Just start something, make a start,
Mm.
create some connection in the community so that we can actually bond, and we'll realize that we're actually stronger when we start agreeing. And then we also learn healthy conflict, because it's also healthy for men to have conflict, but then to resolve that conflict without um without violence. I guess there's always a possibility of violence, but we respect each other enough to actually have the conversation, or provide the feedback that is going to improve that man's life, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Mm.
that is definitely a healthy solution, because where you're in New Zealand, Australia, it's same, and that alcohol culture is
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Mm.
I've done a bit of traveling. We had this conversation the other day, and
Mm.
yeah, there's and I was that guy,
Same.
who can drink the most, who can do the most funnels, and
Yeah, I did all that too.
like we're celebrating this stuff that just destroys the connection that we
Yeah.
actually need from each other.
Yeah,
So
and it's an interesting sort of topic too because it's so glorified. and it's so
Mm,
normalized as well that that unfortunately it is a spell that's like I have conversations too, and some of them, actually most of them, have said that's the only way that they can connect
mm,
is by going to the pub or sitting at home and
yeah.
just cracking some beers and then getting into the straight stuff. Not it's like
Well,
where
why do you think pubs have been built? Like houses have actually become like little prison cells where I am. They're building smaller and smaller houses. There's
yep
no dirt. It's all concrete. So there's no soil. There's no a tiny little grass strip. How many people are out there playing on the grass
yeah
now? Not many.
you're talking
Skate parks are concrete.
yep You were
Yeah.
talking you're talking Truman Show.
Yeah.
Where I'm living right now, I'll send you a photo once this is finished, bird's eye view of where I am. Every house is the same color. Every roof is the same color. Well
Mm.
actually there's not much fences because people are built like this now. They're like almost together.
Mm.
Where I'm living right now is a 15-minute city too, but it is also very similar to that of the Truman Show when they had the bird's eye view. Everything was the same. Where I'm living
Yeah.
right now is pretty much a Truman Show studio. It is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's the environment that's being
Yep.
controlled. And this is why the natural environment is being controlled so tightly because being made to believe that we're the problem and we need to stay away from the natural environment, which is
Correct.
exactly where we need to be. We need, like, how is it a new thing to start talking about grounding and hugging trees and nature and getting out
Yeah.
in nature and things?
That's another form of
Um,
connection, men out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, the point that I was making is that the houses have come closer together, but the people are more and more disconnected. They're actually
Yeah.
terrified of each other. They're terrified of having a conversation. You can go down to the beach and have a barbecue on the barbecue, and people will hardly talk to you. They'll come and
Mm.
use the barbecue next to you, and unless you engage in conversation, they won't even talk to you.
Mate,
You know
my
how?
grandfather, God bless his soul, who's a very, very driving force in my life now of having crossed over, would always say to me that he always knew his neighbors. Like from when he was
Mm,
a kid, from when he was like even in his 70s and that before he died, he knew who lived next door, he knew who lived down the block. You could go out into your I don't know how far away your closest neighbor is. Mine's only just here. I could go across the road now. I actually don't know their names. So this is what I'm saying. We don't know our neighbors anymore.
nah, yeah,
I
and
actually, there's only one neighbor I know, and that's next door. And then I don't know who lives in this vicinity. There you go.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
everyone
and
out
that's
there.
and within your block, a mile radius or whatever. If you just took a big section, there's probably 200, 300 people in that area. They're all in your area of sort of your aura, your vibrational freak. They're in your environment.
Yeah.
You don't know these people. That does a lot to your unconscious mind and to your nervous system as well. The point I was making as well is that why are these pubs they're popping up everywhere. They're building these new developments where
Hmm.
people have no connection, and then all of a sudden there's a cafe or a pub that's popped up. Well, we know what coffee does to the to the conscious mind. It
Yep.
reduces blood flow from the conscious mind and activates the unconscious mind. So you've got basically you've got this unhealthy bonding rituals that are popping up in these new developments. So the only connection people are getting are the non-connection. You know,
Yep.
they're going and they're wanting connection, but they're not actually getting it. They're not getting their soul fulfilled. They're not getting recharged, and that's happening in relationships too on a certain level.
Yeah.
But these pubs and these cafes are coming, and these junk food stores they're popping up everywhere. There's the odd church that pops up, which is a healthier connection. But when do you see, I guess in some countries you do, but somewhere where there's like a healthy sitting bonding where you can actually share what's like a breathwork session area, and that's something I still think that this conscious connected breathwork is one of the most powerful ways to connect with yourself and your community or the people in your room. It's clean, it's healthy, it's your own breath, and you have the ability to really connect in with others in your environment in a healthy way. And people come away from it just feeling brand new. Why is that not being promoted? Why is it not really like those that should have already been done? We've known about this for centuries, for thousands of years, but we weren't taught about it for the last 100 years, so we forgot.
Mm.
It didn't make it into the unconscious mind until just recently.
Mm.
Mm.
And it was all, it was all when I was a kid, it was all deemed as woo woo, or it was, oh, those crazy people are bloody, it was always look at the clothes they're wearing, oh, they're just high on life, they're high on weed, and it's like this persona, this perception that a lot
The
of people have
labels.
of the spiritual community. But that's another conversation. I think the spiritual community's also been hijacked too. But I actually believe that you can be a spiritual person in a modern way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's just about what is like out repping negative behavior at the end
correct.
of the day. And, the more people just keep removing themselves from the unhealthy tribe and joining the small tribe, eventually it's going to become the repetitive content. It's going to become more popular and people will believe it to be normal again. Yeah. And like you say, these things that have been, breath work, I think a lot of the guys believe that it's something to do with giving birth, because when you when you take I don't think you're a father yet, are you? But
Nah.
when I had my first child, we went to the post antenatal classes. They teach you some breathing practices, and they also teach the guys, and you just feel like a weirdo, because it's just new. It's just totally new. So yeah, and you just think, man, if somebody saw me now,
Yeah.
I'd be in a lot of trouble. Um, yeah, I'd cop so much flack. And so, yeah, that's that group pressure. And it really is just, again, supporting people that are doing this and really creating that connection in the area. People will look at you funny for a little while until they actually try it and then realize that they're finally getting the connection that they needed.
Yep.
Mm.
100%. 100%. We did take some notes off air the other day when we were going to record, but someone got busy. We got Dane. So we said we were talking about dangerous men, and you did tie into this earlier. I want you to sort of go in a bit deeper here. People will be like frightened here because it's
Mm.
dangerous men. Well, no, what is a dangerous man out there in society? It's not necessarily a criminal now, is it? It's the You can take over from here.
Yeah, look, it is, and even just I can hear you struggling with it because
Yeah.
your unconscious mind and your nervous system starting to freak out because of other people's beliefs and perceptions around what a dangerous man is.
Yep.
Because we've been so conditioned to believe that a dangerous man is a man that is out there committing atrocities. He's, committing murders. He's abusing women. He's stealing. He's doing drugs. He's drinking. That's a sick man. That's not a
Yes.
dangerous man.
Correct.
That's a man that has severe psychological problems and nervous system negative emotion, traumatic, like a nervous system full of negative emotions and trauma, which has come from his childhood. It's come from the media. It's
Hmm.
come from being dropped at school. Probably barefoot because mum and dad split,
Yep.
and they haven't got enough money to. Mum hasn't got enough money to put shoes on his feet, which probably not so common these days, but earlier on, which has started that generational trauma. Um, so there's the healthy masculine. From my research, my knowledge, and my readings, and my learnings and my teachings, a healthy masculine is capable of danger. He's capable of, I guess, he's capable of violence, but he doesn't need to because he's regulated and he knows that he can confront a situation because he's capable. So he doesn't have to run away from it. And he's also capable of walking away because he knows his worth. right? He knows what he can do. Remember, we talked about how men grow through pushing boundaries, falling out of trees. Throw a stick at a tree and it comes back and hits them. We
Mm,
learn through dumb shit like that. But the problem is a lot of that dumb shit has been heightened because of the substance. The substance has we've made far more silly mistakes and silly decisions because we've been reckless and out of our mind where we weren't able to self-determine.
mm,
The reckless masculine is one that has no self-control, whereas a healthy masculine will be able to push the boundaries in a healthy way to see where the line in the sand is. Do you know what I mean? So that
yeah.
he's able and he's capable of leading. Because how can you lead if you haven't got the torch? If you haven't got the light, you can't lead.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? So you've
yeah.
got to you've got to really push forward to kind of light up the way for others as well. And that's where, like, I talk about steel sharpens steel. And that's why coming together and bonding as men, there's some really fascinating rituals and customs and practices that come from men's groups where men are really put into a position where they need to dig deep to um, I guess to express themselves, to express all of the shit that they've been holding down for such a long time because they haven't been able to lean into conflict. So, a man that's capable of violence is more capable of uh, leaning into danger, leaning into growth, leaning into taking risks. Do you know what I mean? And I tell you what, for a healthy masculine or a healthy, clean, healthy, good-looking man to approach a clean, healthy, good-looking woman with the thought of potential failure, he needs to be, he needs to know where he is. He needs to know that he has got the value to provide that woman. And if he doesn't, he's not going to have the confidence to achieve that. And where does that leave this beautiful woman? This beautiful woman hasn't got any strong, healthy men that can actually provide her with what she needs. So our women actually need healthy men as well to create that polarity. And I think women have a huge role. They play a huge role in actually providing men with the confidence or the ability to grow in that way. So we've got to be capable, we've got to be pushing the limits. And because the fence has kind of closed in on us, and the guilt and shame around um, everything. Guilt and shame are the lowest frequencies
Yep.
that have ever been measured from the human body, right?
Hmm.
And all of the media is portraying men in this way. This guilt and this shame has been pushed in the legislation. When I went through my separation, there was this automatic, I was guilty. I had to prove my innocence to see my children, and that was just because of the capability. So the fence is put there on purpose. And yes, I'm capable of the things, that they are trying to protect you from. But you can't say that just because I'm capable that I'm actually going to do it. Do you know what I mean? So it's blurring the line and it's creating this fence where there's guilt and shame around actually being a clean, healthy man that is able to push himself to the point where he can approach a beautiful woman to co-create to keep his genetic line going. And
Yeah.
that's in everything. That's in our work, starting businesses. Everyone wants to work for somebody, and we've lost the ability to really thrive individually coming together with our special, unique purpose and skill set.
But all done by design too. And a lot of the young men I'm talking to in their 20s and in their even their late teens are all saying they're too scared to approach a woman because they're scared that woman's going to then turn around and say, "You're assaulting me."
Mm,
So you have that underlying fear. I know for me, I had a bit of that, only a little bit. My main fear around this was fear of rejection. But then as you grow and evolve, obviously that's something that we spoke about off air in the last chat. Something I've gotten better at now is actually doing that very thing. But a lot of the young men are saying that, well, yeah, they're scared of the whole assault thing, but then the one under that is the rejection too.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
assault one's massive because they don't want to have be turned around and that woman goes on TikTok or whatever these young platforms are and get their name smeared through the mud, or even worse, that woman goes home and says to their parents, and
Mm,
then 000 is the cops number, and they're like, this guy assaulted me for just coming up and saying
yeah.
hello or whatever. That's the
And so,
unfortunately the reality of it.
yeah, absolutely, mate. And it is that's killing our society. It's killing our young men for sure.
Yep.
And that polarity. So around that, I touched on this with Curious Bee yesterday, and when we did a podcast, we talked about so uh, the how do I explain this? So with
Take your time, bro.
so yeah, bro. So when the guilt and the shame, so a lot of women are actually being conditioned by the media, and the media is actually teaching them that men are dangerous, because
Correct.
what happens is when you're watching a movie, right? It's like wearing a VR headset. When you watch a VR headset, they've actually tested parts of the brain, and the same areas will light up as if they were experiencing it in real life. Now, and I talked about this yesterday on the podcast, where uh, you know, women will be more interested, or they're probably more interested than men in the I guess the thrillers and the horrors, because it stimulates their emotional state, right? But the problem is they're actually experiencing that in real time. Their nervous system and their unconscious mind is actually experiencing it. So they're developing tools to cope with this. And so when they are out in the public, they're actually perceiving a whole lot more threat than that is actually real. And I see this all the time too. When uh, if you're interacting with a woman in the gym or something, and you look at her, you could easily just say hello or whatever. She may try and look away altogether because of a perceived threat that she believes maybe she's going to get hit on, whatever that is. But in actual fact, in a lot of ways, and men are being conditioned as well, in a lot of ways, if there was a more communication, if that underlying fear wasn't there, there would be a more healthy communication, right? But because there's straight away that those two magnets that I was talking about, it's the opposite end of the magnets. You're actually getting that push and pull straight away, and that's killing the polarity as well. And so it all comes back to the fear, guilt, and shame that we're actually experiencing from the television set, and women have been conditioned to believe that men are dangerous. And um, you know it, men are also watching these videos and these films, and they're going out and mimicking and copying.
Yep.
So
I was
we've
victim of that.
realized, yeah, that's right. So when we're behaving like a child, we get treated like a child, and we're incapable of managing our own affairs. We can't self-determine. So it's really important that we learn to, sidestep the substance, sidestep the programming that's purposely put out there to create this dynamic where this fear, guilt, and shame is out there in the community, and women have a higher, like a heightened sense of safety requirement than is actually necessary,
Mm.
and therefore men are feeling that too, and then they're feeling more guilt and shame around actually approaching and having a healthy conversation with women. I mean, it's if you ask, there's so many different perspectives on whether a man and a woman can be friends,
What
and
do you
really,
think?
wow, hey, I've got lots of female
Same,
friends.
so do I.
Yeah. Um, the thing is if they have a partner, that changes the dynamic. That's up to him to, I guess, lay out the non-negotiables. If he's not happy about it, he should know about it, and if he's not happy about it, then he should express that. He should communicate that with his woman, with his
Mm.
partner, so that then so they can work through that themselves. But I think every man should be able to self-determine to the point where he can have female friends,
Agreed.
because what I've learned as well is that you can actually get that polarity, you can get that energetic connection from the feminine that we need to charge us up without the sexual side of it. So when you learn that, there's different interactions that you can, because obviously some women are more attractive to different men. So that yeah, obviously you need to be able to establish where that attraction is coming from and what it is that you need to get from the relationship. So again, it comes back to self-determining and being able to do that to create safety for the feminine and safety for the community. Mm,
100%.
yeah,
100%. And it's yeah, we could talk about this for hours, couldn't we? But
yeah.
but what's the biggest thing you're seeing at the moment in terms of like well actually firstly, what's the age group of men you're talking to compared to mine? Or are you talking about older men or younger men?
Between 40 and 52 mostly,
Yep.
but between 40 and 60,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
but mostly under, yeah,
This is
52.
good. This is going to be
Mm,
a good little conversation next. I'm talking to the younger ones. So, what are
yeah.
you noticing in the older generation? And then obviously I'll answer my own question. But what have you noticed? What is like I don't know 2 or 3 things that is very common in the men of your age group that you're talking to on a daily basis, and then I'll answer my own question as well.
Yeah, so there's the dynamic between him and her. So she's kind of got programs that are making her believe that you know that she's feeling smothered and that she's worth I guess she's more important than the children. That's one of the big dynamics that I'm seeing.
Okay,
So a lot of women, yeah, a lot of these guys that are contacting me, at least what they're expressing to me is that she's left the house and she's actually not really mothering her children, whether it's her parents that have taken them on or whether he's actually left with them. That's quite a common theme. So women are initiating the separation from the guys that are contacting me anyway.
interesting.
Um, and that's also because what happens is with men, because we've become so isolated and we're not connecting on a healthy level with other men, is that we're connecting with our woman every night because we're sleeping next to her, and obviously connecting with her every very often in that way. So that the we're bonding organisms, so that
100%.
yeah, so we're gonna men will change their behavior in order to get their needs met, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so yeah, so I've heard, a lot of um women talking about what they want, and they're actually kind of explaining a woman what they want in a man. They want a best friend, they want someone emotionally available and this and that. So I think a lot of women are actually lacking connection as well, especially when they've been maternal and they've had kids and they haven't really had that tribe. They should have grandmother, they should have aunties, they should have neighbors, friends. Like, it takes a village to raise a child. It absolutely does.
Hmm.
And I think it evens out the vibrational frequency, so there's not such a massive change in belief systems. And when you meet somebody that you just don't connect with, you're straight away, you just don't like them. Energy doesn't lie. It's that sort of thing. And what is happening is men are actually becoming more feminine to meet their woman, and it becomes so what they're wanting, because they're listening to the logic, they're listening to what she's saying. I want you to do this, I want you to be listen to me, I want you to be more present for me, I want you to do this. So they're trying to do what she's saying, but actually what she's feeling is completely opposite to what um she's wanting. So if that makes sense,
Yeah, it
what she's
does.
speaking to him, what
Mm.
she's saying to him, he's listening to from a logical standpoint, and so he's no longer driving her emotions. He's now trying to meet her on a logical point. And women need emotional stimulation in order to drive the attraction. So then she starts pulling away. Then he tries even harder, and he will adjust his behavior to it becomes needy behavior, which
Mm.
is even more ick for her, because all of a sudden she's got another child.
Yeah.
And so the polarity shifts, and then she loses attraction. And then months weeks go by, and she's already checked out of the relationship. She's already lost attraction for him because he's no longer leading. He's no longer at his edge. He doesn't have his mates with a clean, healthy rituals and customs. He's out there smashing himself, comes back, sleeps on the couch. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
just everything about our society and our connections have become very yeah, have become quite toxic and quite backwards. Yeah. So that's what I'm noticing is basically he's the logical and the emotional standpoint is completely different. And I explained that earlier when we talked about the girls at school being more compliant because of their emotional brain. Well, they want a guy to be more, I guess, more assertive and, lead. And if he's kind of trying to please her, then it just kills the polarity.
Without giving too much away for free here, but it is a question I do want to ask you. If someone's watching this and they're saying to themselves after listening to you just then going, well, Matt, Nath, well, if a woman's saying this, how the fuck am I gonna read her feelings? Because
Mm.
I'm telling you, there'll be men right now that just listen to that and are literally saying right now what I just said to you. How the fuck do I understand the feeling component? Because as you said, we're very logical. So if there's a man out there, which there will be, how do
Well, let
they
me ask.
get that
Yeah.
feeling going?
Well, let me ask you a question. Is a man that is listening to her emotions leading,
Good
or is he
question.
following?
Yeah.
So we need to learn to drive the emotions,
Mm,
and we can drive the emotions and keep the emotions alive, because the emotion is stimulation.
correct.
And that's, I think, what they want. And emotional intelligence, when they say emotional intelligence, that can mean so many different things.
Yep.
That intelligence is like, okay, we know our emotions. When I'm feeling angry, I'm recognizing it. Or it can be, I'm grounded, so I'm not so emotional when she's firing emotions at me. Or does it mean that we know how to drive emotions and make her feel loved, feel happy, feel connected?
Love that.
Yeah. So, and I think this is a big part of it is we're listening instead of leading as well. Like obviously we need to listen because it's feedback. I believe that women are feedback. They're a mirror for us. Um,
Hmm.
and it's and learning to drive those emotions to um, stimulate her sense of safety and sense of love and connection um, is, I think, really important to that polarity as well, to that attraction.
It's a good answer. That's so true too. We are leaders, and the more we lead, the more that woman will follow. And as you say, the emotions and that will just be this beautiful dance rather than a imbalance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is a big part of like moving on as you get older as well. It becomes more because we're carrying more. I always ask the men, describe to me the man you were when you first met her. And he'll describe this kid that was just leaning into danger. He was going for it, He
Yeah.
was playing footy. He was, he had a new car and he just moved to this other state, and he was, everything was going well for him. He had this awesome job. He was making some coin, and he had no stress. He wasn't worried about how she was feeling. He was creating her feelings. She felt safe because he was leading himself, and he didn't even know it because he was young.
Love that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, with all of the years of sleeping next to her, bonding with her, and actually submitting to her to get his needs met, he's lost himself.
100%. Fucking nailed it.
So become the version of yourself that was at his peak. And how you do that is connecting with other men on a healthy level, because we have a chance to do it again, but do it again properly, where we're not reckless and we don't have to make the mistakes that we did as boys. So, and that comes from it comes from others. We have to connect with others, whether it's using a coach, whether it's um, the emotional restoration is a big part of becoming
Yeah.
that man, because we've taken on all of these emotions, these negative emotions, the guilt and shame that we talked about, the
Yep.
hurt, the sadness, the fear, the anger. All of this has been fully drip fed into us over the years. So, in order to become the man we were, we've got to clear that out. We've got to clear that debris out. It's like a building. The foundations, like the building's only as strong as the foundations. If the foundations are crumbling, that building's coming down.
Mm.
So we have to restore emotions, the emotional strength, and that's the key to what we do, is actually emotional restoration. Then you've got mindset around the programming. So removing the programs that have got you to the point where you've given up and you've lost all hope, and installing programs that, if I keep nailing this every day, eventually my whole reality is going to change.
Oh
But
yeah.
there's ways and means. Our environment's a big part of that too.
Yep.
And then confidence. Like, women need confidence. They need to know that a man can look after them if they need to. Like, it's an innate. Even though we don't have saber-toothed tigers, they want to know that their man can keep them safe when a saber-toothed tiger comes. Do you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
if a man, that's what I say, if a man hasn't got the ability to be violent, then she's not going to feel safe with him. And I use that term because, a lot of people don't, like, we have a very negative connotation to the word violence, right?
Yep, we
But
do.
having the capacity for it and actually engaging it are two different things. And there's one thing that is right in the middle, and that's substance,
Yep.
self-determination. Yeah.
Very powerful, and I can't believe it's already been an hour and 10 minutes or so already. It's gone so quick. If you,
It's always a pleasure, Nathan. It's
you
always
too,
good
Matt.
to hash these things out.
It is,
I
and
love
we've
what you're doing with the younger generation too, because you're right in the middle as well.
yeah.
You're still a young man, but there's younger guys coming through that are needing someone like you in the middle, where they can, that they can look up to and start seeing, or listening to the words that you're saying. And eventually, when they hear it enough from somebody like you, it'll start resonating,
Mm,
and more people will start coming.
100%. And a lot of these young men that are coming to me were quite like myself. I felt
Mm.
like I talk a lot about the self-identity thing, and the thing you were talking about too. It's like I resonate with that because, even only being 31, like, yeah, I still feel like I'm young in this space, but also feel like I've actually lived a bit as well. So being in that middle, it's definitely a wild ride. Put it that way. We've covered everything here on the list that we made the other day, Matt. So if there's anything else you'd like to share, maybe some upcoming. Actually, where can people find you? If someone's listening, how can they work with you and all that juicy stuff? And then maybe some wisdom at the end to summarize, or a bit of advice for some men out there that are listening and watching wherever in the world they are. Where can they find
Yeah,
you
sure.
first?
Yeah, cool. Well, you can find me on social media, Matt Castle, and you can find my website, myselfsabotagecoaching.com, which is on my homepage there on the Facebook and Instagram. And if there is crisis point, try and get some help before crisis point, because crisis point is, like, it's the tipping point. It's
Yeah,
where it is very difficult to tip the scales back when you're at crisis point. But unfortunately, because we make most of our decisions from the emotional part of the brain, unfortunately, people have to experience that tipping point before they actually go and get help. But for men that need help, or for men that are watching this that just want to get some connection, go and start something. Like, it might just be a men's group that you just sit around talking, like, no booze, just talk about, provide feedback, you know, um, to the men that are in your area. Talk about real issues that people are going through, because we're not interested in the celebrities and the rugby stars and all this sort of thing, and what the Kardashians had for breakfast or whatever. That stuff's dead and gone. We realized that there are people in our community that are needing us more than the TV,
100%.
or the superstars, the celebrities and things. So create something. If you're really having trouble with your emotions, the anger, the sadness, the fear, and the hurt and the guilt, that stuff it needs to be released. Otherwise, there's just this repetitive pattern. So, you get in touch with me, and we can talk about what's going on for you, and then provide some feedback for you. For men and women that are going through hard times in their relationship, I can't stress this enough that get help from something outside of the normal foundation structure, because
Yep.
a lot of this stuff will focus on childhood trauma, and behavior, but it won't focus on what is causing the behavior. And we have to find out what is causing the behavior that's causing you to lose polarity, right? So get some advice around that and get some help before you go making massive decisions that are going to impact the children. It's pretty sad for the children, as
Yep.
much as we put on brave faces and we move on and we find new partners and things like that. This is lifelong. These decisions are affecting our children for
100%.
life. Now we have the tools to actually identify this so we can get to them earlier before they reach crisis point. But again, we're still walking on eggshells, with our children's emotions, so we have to be very careful with them.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, no, that's all of the advice. Parting advice, yeah. Again, I guess just the substances, get clean, get healthy, and just work on physical strength, and emotional strength will come largely as well.
Yep.
Clean up, be careful of the the consumer type narrative and the products that we're using, because a lot of that is actually affecting your brain function and your physiology. So
Mm.
yeah, do your best to minimize the effect.
Get back in the gym, get moving, and challenge yourself because the more challenges you face, whether it's in the gym or whether it's whatever, it will filter out into the rest of your life and you'll start to stack up the evidence and you'll start to have a body of work there and you'll look at yourself in the mirror and go, well, I can do this now, so I can go and achieve X, Y, Z. Gym's very
Yeah,
important.
it is. Well, that's connection too. It's healthy connection. Yeah. Yeah, gym friends, because they're like minds too. They're all healthy people that are working on themselves. It takes a lot of dedication to go to the gym every day for, 3, 4 years.
Mm.
So, people in the gym that you're seeing every day, they're doing what you're doing, they're growing.
Yep.
So yeah, connect
Don't
with
know
those
about
people.
you, but I've been going to the gym now for the last nearly 2.5 years now, and starting to see some real growth, and it's awesome. And just for me, it's that evidence of, well, I've gone from that skinny rake of a kid to this strong man now. It's like, well, there's my body of work. What else can I achieve in other
Yeah.
areas of my life? Because I've already got. I'm looking at myself in the mirror, going, well, look what I've just achieved here, and I can look better. What else can I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Like I've
takes time. And
proven,
if you
like
don't,
you
yeah,
prove to yourself that you can do it.
yeah. And if you don't make a start, you don't get the result.
100%.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful,
that's with
brother.
everything. That's with everything. Yeah, I could talk to you for the next 3 hours. Like there's so much more to talk about. This is why we're probably gonna do part three soon.
Yeah, man. Make a date. Well,
Yeah,
let's not
Matt.
wait until Christmas, though, eh?
No, well, that's coming around
Unless
the
you're
corner.
flying, unless you're flying over here, we can
I
do
could.
it out in the sunshine.
I actually wouldn't mind flying over there and sitting on that deck just out there, overlooking the beautiful trees and the hillside there, mate. Looks bloody awesome where you are.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, it's a good spot. Yeah, the
Uh,
nature, and this is my environment that I've created for myself, and that's why I feel so healthy. And I'm happy being alone because I'm not alone. I've got this beautiful um environment that I've put myself into. So yeah, that's another thing. Get out there and create your environment. Yeah,
100%. Love it.
yeah.
Loved our chat today, Matt. It's always a
Awesome,
pleasure
man.
having you
Yeah,
on. Follow Matt on social media. Reach out to Matt. Give him, you know, yep. Reach out to him. Do all the things. Matt, thank you so much for all you shared today. I know for me,
oh,
as
man.
as a young man, I've learnt a lot just from sitting here listening. And
Mm,
sometimes you feel like you've done all the work. We haven't really done all the work, but sometimes I feel like that. And then I listen to someone like you or come in. I'm like, yep, yep. You know what I mean? Like you just get humbled and you're like, yep, there's a bit more to go here. And it's great. I
Uh,
love it.
it's like peeling the layers of the onion, you know,
Yep,
keep peeling and there's more layers. And as we
100%.
get older, those layers, yeah, you know, there's more layers that actually separate in the onion as the onion gets older. It's almost like the fibers break down, and it's the same with us because we're constantly in an environment that's creating you know, there's information coming and going from our bodies, from our minds. So there's stuff that we've constantly got to be working through all the time.
Yeah,
Mm.
we could sit here and keep talking, Matt.
Yeah, man.
Absolute
Let's wind it
pleasure.
up.
Always a pleasure. I'm so glad Jason did like we both did that program to meet in that program in that group. It's a really awesome community, and that's a community that yeah we need to definitely start building our own communities as men as well outside of the mainstream system, which is failing us. So
Yeah.
Matt, thank you again for jumping on. Yes, we'll get you on before Christmas. It's only 5 months to go until Christmas. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun or when you're
Guys,
busy.
thank you so much for listening and watching wherever in the world you are. Matt's listeners and followers, thank you for tuning in and obviously mine. So I'll be back very soon with some more awesome guests. Matt will be back soon too. Thank you so much again, mate, and I'll talk to everyone soon. Cheers. See you, Matt.